Hi everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. This kind of coffee table illustration with our coffee, our pumpkin, and our plaid little napkin, and some nice leaves to kind of finish it off. So we do a lot of blending in today's video, so that's really fun. That's how we get all the fun pumpkin texture and our foam on our coffee. So that is a lot of fun. So if you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also offer extra tutorials over on Patreon, so that's linked in the description below if you want to check that out. If you join us there, you'll get access to exclusive tutorials every month, along with sneak peeks of what we're drawing over here on YouTube and some other fun things along the way. And if you join now, you get access to all the exclusive tutorials I've posted thus far, including some ones from the fall and holiday season last year. So I'll post some of those on the screen, some of the ones that we've been doing recently, and some of the ones from last year that you'd get access to right away. Otherwise, before we get started on today's drawing, the only thing that you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just save the file to your iPad and then double tap it or click on it and click open in Procreate, and it will automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. Otherwise, nothing else custom to download. So then I will post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we will get started. Okay, this is the color palette that we'll be using today, our plaid coffee table palette. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. We're going to make the background with the kind of wooden pattern, and then we'll make our plaid napkin for the side, and then we'll add our coffee, our pumpkin, and our leaves. So let's go ahead and get started on our layer menu. I'm just going to go ahead and be on layer 1. I'm going to grab my first color on the first row of the color palette and drag and drop it to fill in the whole canvas like so. Same layer, we're going to add our wood texture. So we're just going to grab our second color on the top row. I am going to grab the wooden texture brush under the textures category here. And you can see it's got vertical planks on it, and I want them to be horizontal. So I'm just going to turn my canvas. And then with my brush opacity at 100, my size at 100, I'm just going to go like this across the whole thing to get a good wood texture without picking my pen up at all, like so. So it's a pretty small wood texture, but I think that looks really good for our table. So then I just turn it back so that they're horizontal, and that is it. So we're going to cover a lot of it up. The standard brush that they give you for the wood, like all the little holes all kind of line up and stuff, and it looks very unnatural, but we're going to cover most of it up so it'll look a lot better then. So this is just the start of our background. Let's go ahead and make our plaid napkin now, or table mat, or whatever you want it to be. I'm going to go to my layer menu, add a new layer, and we are going to go ahead and grab our third color on the top row and drag and drop to fill this in. So it'll fill the whole thing. We're going to make it square, and then we're going to angle it and move it off the corner after the design's all done. So this is our background color for the design. Then I'm going to go to my layer menu and add a new layer again. And we're going to be here, and we're going to turn on our 2D grid to help us. So under the gear icon, under canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide. Then I'm going to click edit drawing guide, and we do want our 2D grid. We want assisted drawing turned on, and then we want to make our grid a lot bigger, and this is going to be kind of how we design our piece. 12 across-ish, so it's not exactly, my lines aren't touching the edges, but I'm at 247, and maybe if I click in here and type 250, maybe that'll be a perfect 12, so I'm going to do that. 250 pixels for my size. Make sure you can see it, make sure assisted drawing is marked on, and then go ahead and click done. Okay, we're still on our new layer. This layer now says assisted on it. So now we are going to grab first our kind of mustard color, the fourth one on the top row, and we're going to make some really thick stripes with this. So we're going to grab our selection tool on rectangle and turn on color fill. And I am going to essentially do every 3 squares, and I'm going to just draw vertical for this one, and then we'll flip it for the horizontal one so we don't have to draw it again. But I'm just going to start on the second one in. So I'm going to leave the first one blank. I'm going to start on the top off my canvas, right where that second or the first line is. And I'm going to draw and cover that first vertical stripe and let it go to fill it in. Selection tool to turn that off. turn it back on. If it's not perfect, that's okay. But selection tool to turn it back on, and then we'll skip 2, and I'm going to do another one. Off, back on, skip 2, do another one. If it's not quite perfect, this one has quite a big gap. I'm just going to go back in again, start kind of through the middle and draw to the left a little bit till I hit that line and make it a little bit closer. Okay, selection tool again, skip and go to the last one now. So you should have 4 across with 2 in between. I have 1 on each side. Okay, same layer. We're going to just switch our color to the 5th one on the top row, our kind of reddish color. Selection tool again, and now we're going to make really, really skinny rectangles. So I am just going to go kind of in the center of the next one to the right. I'm going to make a skinny vertical stripe. Okay, selection tool to turn that off. And I'm essentially just going to do that each time. So just to the one on the right, not the one on the left. So just to the one on the right for each one, a skinny red rectangle through the center of that next square. Like so. So then on our last one here, we'll have one as well, but then not on our first one because that's to the left of the next one. So something like this now, kind of staggered. And then we're going to add some white lines as well. So this time we're just going to use our monoline brush. So that's why we had drawing assist turned on for this layer. We're going to grab our whitish color, 6th one on the top row, and our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. I have my opacity for the brush at 100, my size at like 20. And we're just going to go basically on each side of our yellow piece. So I will do one on the left here on this first square. I'm going to go right through the middle. Then we'll go right next to it, in between it and our red color there. Like so. Then again through the middle of this next one and then in between the yellow and red. Middle of the next blank one, between the yellow and red. Middle, between yellow and red. So now we have something like this. Now we want the same pattern, we just want it horizontal. So instead of redrawing it, we're just going to make a duplicate of this and flip it. So on our layer menu, just slide to the left on this layer and hit duplicate. Grab it with our arrow tool, and then we're going to click this rotate 45 degrees here at the bottom twice till we get a nice rotation like this, and this makes up the rest of our pattern. Mine has a gap here on the left because of just the way that my pattern ended up, so I'm just going to make sure I have snapping turned on in the bottom left, and I'm just going to move it over just a smidge until it hits those yellow lines on the side, so it's going off the edge on each side. But boom, there is our plaid pattern, so that looks great. So now we are just going to go to my layer menu and I'm going to snap all 3 of these layers together. So the base layer with our background color, layer 2, plus our 2 striped layers all on one layer. So this is our little napkin or placemat or whatever. Now we're going to rotate it and put it in the corner. So I'm going to grab the whole thing with my arrow tool on uniform if I need to resize it at all. So I'm just going to grab this green button first at the top and rotate it a good ways. I'm probably going to rotate it to like 120, 115 to 120 degrees, somewhere in there. And then I'm going to drag it up here towards the top, zoom out a bit so I can resize it. And on uniform, I'll just resize it a good amount until I get a good size that works here. So my top side is going to kind of hit that right corner, and then my left one hits like almost halfway or so. So rotate it or resize it anymore if you need to, but I think something like this looks good. And then that cuts off quite a bit of our placemat there, but that's okay. Okay, now we can turn up our grid. So on our gear icon under canvas, click to turn off the drawing guide. So we need a little tiny shadow underneath it. So we're going to make shadows underneath everything as we go today. So here's how we'll do that. So on our layer menu, I'm going to slide to the left on this layer and hit duplicate. I'm going to grab the bottom one, click on it and turn on alpha lock so that we can recolor it to our shadow color, which is going to be this 7th one on the top row always. Back to my layer menu, click on this layer and click fill layer and you'll see it recolor underneath this other layer. Click on it again and turn alpha lock off so that we can blur it, and then click the N and set it to multiply the layer style there. So after you do all that, we'll go to our wand icon, Gaussian blur, and drag this up to about 5%. And you can see it stick out there just a teeny bit under the edge, but we want just to see a little bit more of it. So I'm going to grab it with my arrow tool and just move it down and to the right just a little bit, or straight down or something like that. So we can see just a teeny bit, but this one's pretty close to the table, so we don't want to see a huge shadow underneath it, just something really small. So that looks good. And that is it for our little placemat now. So on our layer menu, now we can continue on to our coffee next. So on our layer menu, add a new layer to the very top. Grab our first color on the second row now. And our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab at 30%, let's do. And we're just going to start with a perfect circle. So I'm going to make a good circle shape on my canvas, hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle. A good, just kind of medium-ish sized circle like this. And then let's go ahead and fill it in. Then if you need to resize it at all, you can grab it with your arrow tool on uniform, and you can resize it up or down. And then I'm just going to place it kind of like in this like bottom left kind of area here, covering our napkin just a little bit, and then still some good room though off the bottom and left side, like so. And this is our plate that our coffee cup will sit on. So that looks pretty good to me. We still want a good amount of room for like our pumpkin and everything, so we don't want it to be too huge. So that looks good. I'm going to go to my layer menu now and make the middle of my plate. So on my layer menu, I'm just going to slide to the left on this circle and hit duplicate, be on the top one. I'm going to click on it and turn on alpha lock. I'm going to first grab my next color line, second one on the second row, and then back to my layer menu, click on this layer on the top with alpha lock on and click fill layer. Grab it with my arrow tool on uniform. We're going to downsize it a bit, and then we want to recenter it with this other circle. So again, make sure snapping's turned on in the bottom left, and then when we drag it around, we'll see these like two blue lines pop up that shows that we're centered there in the middle. I'm going to downsize it some more until I get a good kind of like center of the plate that I like. So something I think like this looks good, a nice little rim to our plate. While we're here, let's go ahead and make a little highlight on the rim of our plate. So on our layer menu, I'm going to go back to this first layer of our plates, our first circle, click on it and turn alpha lock on there. Grab our third color on the second row and our soft brush under the airbrushing category. My opacity for the brush is at 100. My size will do pretty small, like 5%. And I'm just going to go around the rim here on the top left corner because that's where our light's going to be coming from always, the top left. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a highlight to that side. So something like that. Okay, while we're here, we can also make the shadow for our plate, same way that we did for our napkin. So on our layer menu, I'm going to make a duplicate of this bottom circle layer. Click the bottom one. Alpha lock's already turned on. I'm just going to recolor it to our shadow color again, the seventh one on the top row. Back to my layer menu, click on this layer and click fill layer. Click the N, set it to multiply, and click on it and turn alpha lock off so that we can blur it. And then again, wand icon, Gaussian blur, up to 5%. And again, we are going to move it down and to the right because that's where our shadow is going to be cast. So grab it with my arrow tool, move it down and to the right just a little bit so we get a good shadow there. But that looks good for the start of our plate. So now I'm going to go ahead and start my coffee cup inside. So I'm going to make a duplicate of my top circle layer, and then I can snap my second two together. So the one that we just made a duplicate of in the plate. So the two normal layers in the middle, I'll snap those together so that makes up our plate there. And then our multiply layer is still separate. But then on my top layer that we made a duplicate of, this will be the start of our coffee cup. So alpha lock's already turned on, so we can recolor it. We're going to grab the fourth color on the second row, back to our layer menu, click on this layer and click fill layer. Grab with our arrow tool on uniform, downsize it a bit, and center it again on our circle. So I don't want maybe as much around it showing of like our darker plate color. So maybe something like this is good. Okay, layer menu again, another duplicate to make now our coffee color inside. So our top layer still, alpha lock still turned on. We're just going to recolor it to this sixth color on the middle row. Back to my layer menu, click on this layer, fill layer. Arrow tool, uniform, downsize and recenter, and this will make like the rim of our coffee cup, so resize it down as much as you would like to get a little rim all the way around our coffee. I think that looks pretty good. So now we can kind of do some more stuff to it. So let's see, I'm going to go back to my previous circle layer here, which is the rim of my coffee cup, and we'll add a little highlight to the edge again. So alpha lock's already turned on. I'm going to grab my fifth color on the second row, the really bright white, and go and be on my soft brush still under the airbrushing category, Lower my size probably to even like 3%, really, really low. And again, top left side of my rim on the very edge, I'm just going to add a little highlight there, like so. Okay, then we'll also cast a shadow inside the coffee a little bit. So I'm going to go to my coffee layer, add a layer above it. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask, and then click the N and set it to multiply again so we can add our shadow. So this time we're not duplicating and adding a shadow that way. We are going to draw a shadow inside. So we're going to go back to that same shadow color, seventh one on the top row, same soft brush. I'm going to increase my size to maybe 5% at the most. And again, right on this corner, this top left corner, I'm going to come in and create a little bit of a shadow there, kind of following the curve of my cup and coming in just a little ways and then letting it kind of fade off on the edges. Pushing pretty hard so we get a good shadow, but it's got a little fading on the edges like the rest of our shadows do. So that looks good for my inner coffee shadow. Okay, let's go ahead and make the handle for our mug. So to do that, we'll go back to this main mug layer that we just added the little highlight to. So this plain white circle underneath our brown one. Click on that layer and turn Alpha Lock off now so we can add to it. I'm going to grab that same base color, fourth one on the second row, selection tool again with a rectangle and color fill turned on. And I'm just going to start on the right edge here and I'm just going to make a little rectangle coming off like so. Awesome. Okay, and I know it's very hard to kind of see the difference in these colors because of our plate being so similar, but we're going to round the corners to this handle now. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool, which I'm also going to have on the monoline brush at 30%. And I am just going to round the corners of it. So it might be a little hard to see, but if you need to, you can also go turn your plate layer off and then you can see it better. So if that's helpful to you, go ahead and do that. So yeah, we just want a rounded corner on each corner here. So I'm just erasing a little curve, leaving the rest of it all straight until it looks something like this. That looks good. I'm going to go turn my plate layer back on, and now we can make a shadow for our mug. So, and that'll also help see the handle a little bit better. So on our layer menu, I'm going to slide to the left and hit duplicate on this mug layer. Go to the bottom one, turn on Alpha Lock so we can recolor to our shadow color, seventh one on the top row. Back to my layer menu, click on this layer, fill layer, click the N, set it to multiply, and turn off Alpha Lock. Wand icon, Gaussian blur up to 5%, arrow tool down and to the right. So, just like we have been doing this whole time, a new shadow there for our mug, and then that helps us see our handle a little bit better too. But overall, that looks great. So next up, we're going to make all the fun design in our coffee cup now. So the little like foam design. And this is the first time that we're actually going to be doing our smudging, which we're going to do to our pumpkin and our leaves as well. So this will be fun. So on our layer menu, I'm going to add a layer right above my coffee colored circle, and it's below my other clipping mask. So it automatically sets itself to a clipping mask, which is good, but just a normal layer this time. And our coffee color was this sixth one on the second row. So then we have three lighter colors next to it that we'll use. So grab the seventh one, the kind of orangey one on the second row. And we're still going to be in our soft brush under the airbrushing category. We're going to set our size pretty high to like 10% now, higher than it was before. And we're just going to start in the center here, and I'm just going to work kind of outwards a little bit like so till we get a good kind of circle going on of this color. Okay, same layer. I'm just going to switch to the next color in line, eighth one on the second row. I might down my size a little bit to like 6 or 7 and start in the center and add this color as well. So now it's not going out as far. So now we have like 3 colors, the brown, the kind of orangey, and this creamy color. And now we're going to do our kind of blending thing. So we don't want it to look so perfect. We want it to look kind of, like it had some movement to it. So I'm going to go to my smudge tool here at the top. I'm going to have this set. So if you open it up, I'm going to have this set to the medium brush under the airbrushing category now. My opacity for the smudge is at 100. My size will maybe do like 3 to 5% for this. And we're just going to go through and kind of smudge some of our colors together. So, and add some kind of like movement like this to it. So I'm going to smudge my darker color in, smudge my lighter colors out, always kind of working in like a circular motion so that we get some kind of just variation going on through our coffee here. So then it looks something like this. It's all under our shadow over here. But yeah, something like this, so it's just like a little murkier looking. Okay, and now we'll make our foam design in the center. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above the one we're on. It'll automatically set itself to a clipping mask underneath our shadow layer. We'll grab our next color in line, ninth one on the second row, and our soft brush still under the airbrushing category. Size at like, let's do 3% probably. So I'm going to start and make our little foam design. We're going to do a very simplified version of it. So I'm going to start kind of through the center and add just like a straight line. Okay. It's kind of at an angle, but it doesn't have to be at an angle. We can angle it later. Something like that to start. Then on the top, we're going to make kind of like a little heart shape. Okay. Then on each side, as we go down, I'm going to make some little pieces coming off like this. Maybe I'll do 3 on each side or so. Okay, and this is the start to our foam design. I'm pushing down pretty hard, getting some good thick sections. Okay, now we take our smudge tool. Same settings as before, the medium brush, and I'll set my size to probably like 3%. And we're going to start by smudging these outwards, these lines on each side, and we're going to, again, kind of round them. So I'm going to start towards the center of one and kind of like round it out this way. Kind of keep going with that to kind of smudge it out. Same thing with this one, kind of round it out this way. And then, yeah, it gets kind of nice and blurry at the edge, kind of like our foam would. Okay. Always kind of going back and pulling from that main color till we get good design going. Okay. Then once that's looking good, we can continue on. I'm going to smudge this heart a little bit at the top, and I'm going to kind of bring some of the color, the brown color through as well, so it gets a little kind of faded and stuff, and kind of just looks more natural. Okay, so I'm going to kind of bring that in through these little sections. Kind of just smudge everything together in the middle, get some of the brown coming through too so that it looks more movement-like. Kind of towards the ends too to kind of sharpen those ends. I'm coming in from the edges. Okay, so now we have some good smudginess going on. Go just again, smudge through with the darker color, smudge out with the lighter color, whatever works. And then towards the end here, I want this to come to more of a tip. So I'm going to smudge in from the sides and kind of bring this to more of like a point towards the bottom. Something like this. But again, just kind of smudgy all around. So I'm going to probably smudge some of this lighter color back out in some of these areas where it got a little thin. So you want some good foam through the center here. And thicken this up at the bottom a little bit. And then just kind of blurry up some of the edges a little bit more too. That looks nice. Okay, so just keep messing with it till you get something that you like this. And then if you want to, you can grab with your arrow tool and we can either resize it if it's too big or too small. We can rotate it a little bit and just kind of place it in the center of our coffee here. And then that is our little foam design. So that looks awesome. So that is it for our coffee cup. Let's go ahead and move on now to our pumpkin. And we'll get that all done, and then we'll add the leaves to finish it off. So on our layer menu, let's go ahead and just add a layer to the very top of all of our layers. Let's go ahead and grab our bright orange color, first one on the last row, and our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. And I'm going to make a perfect circle up in the kind of upper right corner here. So another perfect circle to start our pumpkin. Hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth. Touch your finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle. A good kind of smallish size like this, and fill it in. Grab it with your arrow tool on uniform if you want to move it around or resize it. But I think just like a small pumpkin up to the right of our coffee cup here looks good. So this will be how we start it. Okay, so now we are going to make the pumpkin shape. So we're going to grab our eraser tool, have it set to the monoline brush at 30%. And I am first going to start and just make some little divots. So just kind of all the way around, I'm just going to go straight in just a little bit like this. So I'll go till I maybe have like 8 of them. So there's 2, 3, 4, maybe make a bigger one, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Okay, and then that is where our little, curves of the pumpkin are going to be. So now from each little divot that I made, I'm going to kind of erase and kind of create like a more, unique shape going. So I'm going to start here and kind of erase up and then kind of erase back down to our next one and kind of just create these like fun, flat kind of shapes from divot to divot. So yeah, just some kind of flat lines to create these little pieces of our pumpkin, or you can do perfectly curved lines if you want to as well. You can erase from one divot to the next in a perfectly curved line, hold it down until it's nice and smooth, and then erase anything outside of it. You can do that if you would like to, but I want mine to be a little bit more like fun and kind of like natural looking, so I'm doing some kind of divots to it. But that's also just like a good way to get started. Maybe do a curve first from line to line, and then kind of go back through and deepen some of the divots up if you need to so that they're nice and, pronounced. So we're just going to do that all the way around. So this one's pretty big. Do a nice curve. Make the divots. Kind of rough this up a little bit. Okay. Next one. Okay, so now it should look something like this. Go through and remake your divots more pronounced if you need to, or anything like that. Fix it up, smooth anything out. But it can have a pretty kind of rough shape to it, that's fine. But that is the start of our pumpkin shape there. So now we're going to make the stem in the center, and then we can have some shadows coming from that. So on our layer menu, let's add a new layer. Let's make our stem, and that's going to be with this brown color, the sixth one on the bottom row to start. And I'm just going to make like a little circle in the center again. So a circular shape, hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth. Touch your finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle, pretty small. Fill it in. Grab it with your arrow tool, and you can probably center it on this circle shape. I'm not sure. It might kind of give you a weird centering, so just kind of eyeball it if you need to. Whatever you think looks pretty centered there. And then coming off of that, with our monoline brush, I'm just going to go kind of up and to the right a little bit. Make like the end of it like kind of curved here, and then kind of come back down like so, to create like a little stem that we're kind of looking at from the top, but it's still a little kind of lopsided. Fill that in so you have a nice stem shape like this. Okay, I'm going to grab my eraser tool, kind of fix it up a little bit so you can do any cleaning up. And then at the base here, I'm also going to make it a little strangely shaped, so I'm going to kind of create some more kind of cuts and stuff so it's not so perfectly circular. So it looks something like this on the top of our pumpkin there. If you need to make it smaller or resize it or rotate it or anything, go ahead and do so. But again, the base should be like towards the center, and then the stem can come like up and to the right. So that looks good for my stem there. So then I'm going to make the shadows through our divots from our stem. So on our layer menu, I'm going to go back to my orange pumpkin layer and add a layer right above it. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. And then I'm going to grab my darker orange color, fourth one on the bottom row, and my monoline brush still. And essentially, let's go ahead and go like kind of around the base first, create a little weird shape, fill it in. You know, that's just kind of the start of our shadow there. Doesn't need to be anything perfect. And then from there, we're going to go through to each kind of crevice here. So I'm going to start maybe on the crevices or the divots or whatever towards the edge, make a little shadow on each side, like so, coming from the edge. And then where it comes to the middle, we're just going to kind of go back to our base shadow on the stem and again, kind of curve those out so they come together. So kind of a thin line, and then it curves out towards the base, and then it curves out again towards the edge. So we'll do that for each one. So again, whatever you want to do, if you want to start with like the straight line, and it doesn't have, you don't have to hold it down, but just a nice pretty straight line. And then again, shadows towards the edges right there, shadows towards the base if you can see them. Again, straight line, shadows here, shadow there, shadow here, smooth it out. But again, they can look pretty rough. That's kind of the whole idea here. They can look pretty rough and wobbly. Okay, next one. Next one. And we're going to end up blurring them, so they don't, that's another reason that they don't have to be too perfect. We're going to end up smudging them. So just something like that to get some good shadows going through to kind of help pronounce those lines a little bit better. Okay, and now we'll add some highlight colors as well. So we're going to add those underneath this layer. So on our layer menu, let's add a layer right above our pumpkin layer again, and it'll automatically set itself to a clipping mask underneath the one that we just created with our shadow color. And we're going to go ahead and add more shadows and also highlights. So let's stay on this darker orange color, the fourth one on the bottom row that we're on, and we're going to create a shadow kind of on this right side, this bottom right corner. So if we're, straight on, it's going to be on the bottom right corner here. I'm going to create a perfect curve. So I'm going to start like kind of like halfway on the right side and curve around towards like the left side like this till we get a nice curve going on maybe this bottom right corner. I'm going to connect around the outside of that, so I create a shape to fill in. And it's the same color as our top shadows, but that's okay. And then we're going to make it a little deeper as well. So I'm going to grab the fifth color on the bottom row and just kind of make it a little deeper on this edge here, the farthest edge. Like so. I didn't hold it down or anything. I'm just kind of going in with my brush, and we'll blur them and smudge them and stuff. So that looks good for now. Then on the same layer, we'll add our highlights. So let's grab our second color on the bottom row, same monoline brush. And again, we're going to blur these all together and stuff and smudge them, but I'm just going to add some blocks of color kind of. So like on the edges of each one on the top here where the light would be hitting, we'll add some there. And we're under our shadow color. So that's good. Just kind of all around the tops there. Maybe like the top edge here. And then a lot of this is going to be in highlight up here. So I'm going to make some more little kind of patches of color kind of next to our lines, our shadow lines and stuff where the highlight would hit. And then same thing on these bottom ones, the highlight would hit maybe like next to these shadow lines. So I'm going to put some there and maybe just some other little sections as well. So really rough, but yeah, a good amount of highlight areas. So let's go ahead and do our smudging now, and then we'll come back in and add a final highlight and maybe some more shadows as well after we get these all done. So I'm going to start on this bottom layer here and start smudging. So this one has our highlights and our deeper shadows on it. So I'm going to grab my same smudge medium brush, And then we'll set our size to like 3% and we'll see how that kind of goes. But I'm going to kind of smudge through the edges here, smudge through these bigger sections. If your brush is a little too big, which it might be, I'm going to go down to like maybe 2%. And again, smudge the edges through, get some good just kind of variation going. And then I kind of want to smudge everything in the direction that these are going. Aside from our little side highlights, I want to smudge everything else in the direction of their little kind of pie slice almost. So yeah, so something like this. And then feel free to always go back in with your brush too to add more sections. Like I might want another section there, and then I'll go smudge it out. So we get some more variation. Yeah, never smudging it so much that we can't like see it anymore. We want to still see the different colors and stuff. Okay, now I'm just kind of focusing on the highlights for now. And then we're still on the layer of these darker shadows as well. But again, smudge, you can smudge in with your orange color a little bit if you like from the edges, if you want to kind of dampen the highlight effect. And just kind of mix it up a little bit more. Get those all nice and kind of blendy, like so. Okay, and then we're going to smudge this darker shadow here, just kind of in the same direction as the shadow lines there. So kind of like perpendicular, I guess, to the edges. Just kind of smudge those together, smudge those through, smudge some of the lighter color through, like from the edge. Kind of whatever works. Get some shadow going there. So that looks good, something like that. Awesome. Now let's go back to our next layer up with our main shadow lines on it. And same thing, we're going to smudge those as well. So I'm just going to go kind of right through the center here. I'm going to kind of smudge from the center to the edges. So the edges get nice and kind of blurry. I don't want to lose the lines much, so I'm trying not to go towards the sides too much because that'll kind of help lose our lines. But they can thin out a little bit if necessary. But yeah, we want to kind of keep the main lines, just kind of smudge the edges of them through. So always kind of going in the same direction of the line and always kind of working from the center so we don't lose too much of it. You can always kind of pull back from the middle if you need to. Or again, feel free to go in with your brush at all. So like here, I like added too much where I can now see a highlight. So I'm going to go back in with my brush with that darker orange color, fourth one on the bottom row, and kind of add some more back in and then smudge it out again if you need to. So if you ever get, too carried away, feel free to go back in and fix it up with some more just color added and then more smudging. Okay, so now it looks something like this. So that's a lot better. Just feel free to kind of keep smudging in and out, like towards the edges and stuff, so that it just looks very natural. That's kind of what we're going for. And they just look like shadows and not like, lines that we drew. So that looks awesome from far away and from the top. So let's continue on. I'm just going to add a little bit more highlight, a little bit more shadow. So back to our highlight layer. So the one right above our pumpkin, I'm going to grab my third color on the bottom row, same monoline brush. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this in as well. So towards the edge, on the top here, and then maybe little tiny sections that we already like have highlighted. something like this. Nothing too crazy, just like that. Smudge tool again, and we'll smudge those out. So smudge the highlight towards the edges. And I want them to like mostly go away, but just kind of there a little bit. Smudge these in the direction of our pie slice. But yeah, just add a little bit more kind of variation and stuff. Like so. Then a little bit more shadow, so back to our shadow layer. We're going to grab our really dark color again, fifth one on this bottom row, same monoline brush, and I'm going to add a little bit of this near the base of our pumpkin, and then maybe through some of these further edges, just kind of right in the little divots there, or kind of towards the bases, mainly just in the divots on the ends, like so. And then again, smudge tool will smudge it out. So I'll smudge this all by the base. Kind of going around where, you know, in the pie slice direction, and then smudge these in from the edges as well. Trying not to lose them too much, but we just want a little bit more kind of variety. Just kind of connecting back with those lines. So once that's done, that completes our pumpkin there, aside from our stem. We still have to do the stem. So that completes our main pumpkin. So now we'll go to our stem layer and we'll do a similar thing. We're just going to do it right on this layer. So we're not going to add the clipping masks. We're just going to click on this layer, turn on alpha lock. And our stem color we had was the base color was the 6th one on the bottom row. So we have the 7th and 8th one in line, darker and lighter. So let's grab the 7th one, same monoline brush, the darker color here I'm going to add again towards the base, and then maybe on the right side a little bit, since that's going to be in shadow from the top left corner. Then our lighter color, 8th one on the bottom row, we're going to come in and maybe just do like a little streak through the top side here, something like that. Okay, smudge tool, we'll smudge it out. So I'm going to start with the highlights, just kind of smudge those through towards the edges and stuff, kind of up in that kind of up angled direction, and then smudge the shadow towards the bottom, like so. So smudge it all out, and that is our stem. Very simple there. That looks awesome. Now on our layer menu, if we want to, we can snap all these layers together. So the stem all the way through to our main pumpkin base layer. That'll help save some layers. And then I'm going to make the shadow for it. So slide to the left on this layer and hit duplicate. Grab the bottom one, click on it and turn on alpha lock. And then we'll fill it with our shadow color, 7th one on the top row. Back to our layer menu, click on it, click fill layer. Click the end, set it to multiply. Click on it and turn alpha lock off so we can blur it. Wand icon, Gaussian blur, 5%, arrow tool down and to the right a little bit. So that'll create our shadow from our pumpkin there. Same thing that we did before. Okay, so that looks awesome. Let's go ahead and continue on. Coffee pumpkin look great. Now we just need our leaves. I'm going to draw one yellow leaf, one red leaf. We'll add some veins. We'll add some shadows and highlights with our blurring, and then we'll duplicate them for any other ones that we want on our picture. So on our layer menu, let's go ahead and add a layer just right above our kind of placemat plaid layer so that they're behind our coffee cup and our pumpkins, and in case they want to be like in their shadow. To get all the colors on the color palette, I had to kind of do some maneuvering. So the base color of our leaves are the same colors as our plaid colors. So the yellow one is this 4th color on the top row. The red one is this 5th color on the top row. Same colors that we used in our plaid. So those are the base colors. Then the last 3 colors on the top here go with our yellow color. So this is our kind of shadow color, our highlight color, and our stem color. And then for the red, it's these 3 colors here that kind of make up the last little bit of our color palette on the middle and right. So the base color is this color, then we have our shadow color, our stem color, and our highlight color. So I'll explain as we go, but let's start with our stem color. So I'm going to start with the last color on the top row, 10th in line here, kind of a brownish color. This is the stem for our yellow leaf. And for our brush, I'm going to switch us to the Studio Pen under the inking category. So find that. I am going to have my size set at like 40%, opacity at 100, and we're going to start with like the base of the stem at the bottom, and I'm going to push pretty hard, and then I'm going to kind of come up and come to like a point. So something like that, a nice long stem. So redo that if you need to get a nice kind of smooth line. If you just kind of push pretty hard and then kind of come up pretty quickly to draw a nice smooth line till you get something that you like. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, then coming off of that, I'm going to do 3 on each side. So starting at the base, same thing. I'm going to kind of push pretty hard and then let it kind of taper off. So we get a little bit of a point, maybe a little further apart. So I just do 3. Okay, so that's our stem. Then on our layer menu, let's add a layer right below that one. So again, right above our plaid layer. And we're going to grab our yellow color, 4th one on the top row, which is going to make up our leaves. I'm just going to stay on my Studio Pen, and I'm going to start at the base a little bit lower than this first little branch off point. And we'll come around, we'll kind of round around it, round around the next one, and the next one, and the top one, just kind of all the way around till we get a good leaf shape back to the middle. Connect it there under our stem at the bottom and fill that in. So that's our leaf shape, very simple. And we're probably actually just going to do one, and then I'll actually just color it for our red one. So if that's okay with you, unless you want to draw a separate one, go ahead and do so. But I'm probably just going to recolor this one for the red one. So then on my layer menu, I'm just going to actually group these together. So I'll select one, slide right on the other, so my 2 leaf layers, and click group. And then if you click this group at the top, you can grab that with your arrow tool and it has both of them selected. You can move them around, resize them, anything like that. But I think this looks pretty good. I'm going to kind of place it here. Okay, then I'm going to duplicate this for my red one. So on my layer menu, I'm just going to slide to the left and hit duplicate. And then with this new group selected, I'm going to go into each one of these layers and turn on alpha lock and then recolor them. So I'll select my yellow one. Go back to my color palette and grab my 5th color on the top row. Back to my layer menu, this yellow one, I'm going to click on it and click fill layer. And then same thing for my stem. Alpha lock's already on. I'm going to grab my stem color, which is this last one on the last row. Back to my layer menu, click on this layer, click fill layer. Now we should have a red leaf. So then on my layer menu, I'm going to grab the group, and then I'm just going to grab my arrow tool. I'm first going to click flip horizontal so it's facing a different way. And then if you want to move it, rotate it, resize it, kind of whatever works here. Let me do something like this for my 2 leaves there. Okay, so I have my 2 colored leaves. I don't want to add any veining or highlights yet until we get the other ones in place. So place them where you would like to. I think this looks good for these 2 here. And then I'm going to go to my layer menu, make a duplicate of my red group. Arrow tool, and then this one maybe I'll turn and rotate and place maybe like up here towards the top of my little napkin, and I'll add a shadow to it so that it pops a little bit more, but maybe something like that. And then my yellow one, I'll make another duplicate of that as well. So the whole group. If you're running out of layers, you can snap your bottom 3 layers all together. And that's pretty much it for now, unless you want to snap all of your coffee layers together except for this bottom multiply layer. You could do that as well. You could snap from the top clipping mask to the plate. You could snap all of those together, and those are all done. I'm going to leave them separate, but if you need to save layers, that's how you can do so. So again, we have our duplicate of our yellow here. I'm going to grab it with my arrow tool. I might flip this one again horizontally, drag it over here, and maybe place it like down here or something. Kind of just whatever you think works well for your picture. So I might have it kind of coming off the corner here or something like that. Okay, so just a few good leaves going around, and now we can add the veining and the highlights to them. So let's just go in order maybe from the bottom. So this bottom yellow group here is this yellow leaf here. So whichever one yours is, I'm going to go through, I'm going to turn alpha lock on for my main leaf layer. I'm going to grab my veining color, which is going to be this eighth one on the top row. Same studio pen. I'm going to drop the size to like 10%. And I'm going to go through and add some veining to it. So just kind of through the leaf here, kind of in the direction of the leaves, and we'll blend them and stuff. So just kind of however you want them to look. Then we'll also add a highlight, same way. I'm just going to switch to my highlight color, ninth one on the top row, and our light's coming from the top left. So just kind of hit the top left sides of your leaves. Kind of like so. You can kind of come through here, that's fine. Again, we'll blur them together and stuff, but just kind of wherever you can see them or wherever you want to hit. Now we'll blend. So grab our blend tool, the medium brush still. I'm going to lower my size really, really low to like 1 to 2% to do my veining here so I don't lose them entirely. But I'm just going to go in the same direction to kind of blend them through the leaf there. Do that for each little vein. And then our highlights will just kind of blend through as well. So just kind of blend those on the edges. So we have a nice little highlight here and there. Wherever you see fit for those, feel free to go back in with your brush if you need to. Blend out, blend in. But just something like that looks good. Okay, now that this one's done, I'm going to go ahead and go to my group on the top here with this leaf in it. Click on it and click flatten. And now I have one big leaf layer. Make a duplicate of it for our shadow. Select the bottom one. Alpha lock should be turned on already. If it's not, go ahead and turn it on so we can recolor to our shadow color. Seventh one on the top row. Back to our layer menu. Click on this layer. Click fill layer. Click the N. Set it to multiply. Alpha lock off. Wand icon. Gaussian blur. Up 5%. Arrow tool. Down and to the right to create our little shadow. Pretty close to it. We don't want it too far away. They're like sitting on the table, so they're not creating that much of a shadow, just a tiny little one. So boom, that leaf's done. We're going to do the same thing for our other leaves now. So our next leaf that I have is this other yellow one. I'm going to click on the yellow leaf layer and turn on alpha lock. Grab our veining color, eighth one on the top row. Same studio pen. Same idea. The veining through it. Next color in line, ninth one on the top row for our highlights. So this is why we didn't do the highlights before we duplicated them, is because they might be different for, depending on which angle your leaves ended up at. So just to add the highlight to the top left side of where they would hit. Beautiful. Let's blur now. So back to our blurring tool or our blending tool. I'll blend all the highlights, all the veins. Okay, and then once that looks good, we'll be able to flatten it and make our shadow. So layer menu, click the top of the group, click flatten, make a duplicate of it. Bottom one, alpha lock should already be turned on. If it's not, turn it on. Recolor to our seventh color on the top row. Fill layer. Set to multiply. Turn alpha lock off. Wand icon, Gaussian blur, 5%. Arrow tool, down and to the right just a smidge. Again, nothing too crazy, just the teeniest little shadow there. Okay, layer menu, next set of layers is our red one. I think this is my right red one here, so whichever one yours is, but same idea. I'm on my main leaf layer, alpha lock's turned on. I'm going to grab my ninth color on the bottom row, grab our studio pen, make our veining in the direction of our leaves. Okay, then our highlight color is the last one on the second row. We'll add that to the edges, the top and right edges. This one's like under the shadow here a little bit, and you can add a highlight there if you want, but typically there wouldn't be a highlight there if it's under a shadow. So I might just leave that alone, but I'll do the rest of it where I see fit. Okay, blend tool. Same thing, we'll blend all of our streaks and our highlights as well, just as you go. Or if you want to do the veins first and then the highlights later, whichever you prefer. Beautiful. That's it for that leaf. So on our layer menu, I'll click on the group on the top, click flatten, make a duplicate. Select the bottom one, alpha lock should be turned on. Switch to our shadow color, 7th on the top row. Fill layer, set to multiply, turn alpha lock off. Wand icon, Gaussian blur, up to 5%. Arrow tool down into the right a smidge, just a teeny little bit. But again, and now we're like on top of our other leaf too, so it adds a shadow on top of that, so they're all kind of separate. Okay, then my final leaf at the top here, I'm going to go to my main leaf layer. Alpha lock's already turned on, but if not, turn it on. Grab our veining color, 9th one on the bottom row. Same studio pen, same idea, veins throughout. And then a highlight, last color on the 2nd row. And for this one, like the angle that it's at, I'm probably just going to hit like the sides here maybe. Maybe a little bit just kind of through here, just on this like left side, like so. Smudge tool, smudge our veins, smudge our highlights, smudge it all together. Awesome. Once that's done, we just need our shadow. So layer menu, click on the top of the group, click flatten, duplicate, bottom one, alpha lock's already on. Switch to our 7th color on the top row, click fill layer, multiply, alpha lock off, wand icon, Gaussian blur, 5%, arrow tool, down into the right a smidge to create a little bit of a shadow there. Okay. And then once that's done, our final shadow, that is it for our drawing today. So I hope that you had fun. I hope that you like the way that yours turned out. I hope that you maybe learned something new. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It really helps out my channel and helps show this video to more people so that they can follow along also. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any future tutorials from me. And if you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it. So go ahead and post it there and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching.